All right, guys, we have the intro to the intro, so you know we're doing some cool stuff. I wanted to talk to y'all a little bit about this. This is a new sponsor. Yeah, we got a sponsor for the podcast, and it's none other than Bad Motivator Barrels. Go to badmotivatorbarrels.com. I'm going to set it down. Go to badmotivatorbarrels.com and find you a good barrel. Go to the checkout. You put coupon code SHAMAN5, and it'll give you 5% off that barrel. This is a limited time offer. We're going to run this for a little while and see how it works. These guys have really tight margins, so get it while you can. And also, they have a wait list of people trying to get the barrels. So get in there and get them before the holiday rush. That's why we're doing this a little early, so that you don't have to worry about the holiday rush. You're going to run out. And you're probably thinking, well, I'm not a craft distillery. I'm not a hypothetical whiskey maker. Why would I want one? Well, like I've said before, for one, they're cool as hell on the shelf. And they have different char levels, toast levels. They're doing all sorts of cool stuff with like old bourbon barrels and stuff like that. But why would you want one? Because if you're really into whiskey, part of that is changing whiskey and learning about it and stuff like that. So taking it and putting whiskey in another barrel and double oaking it or something like that is a really cool concept. So go to your local, there's a local distillery by you, I'm sure there is. Get some of their new make, fill one of these barrels and make your own whiskey. It's totally legal, nothing skirting the line there. So get you one of those, fill it up. It's super cool. Yeah, it takes a little time and effort and stuff like that, but if you're really into whiskey and you want to nerd out on it, that's the best way to do it. So again, go to badmotivatorbarrels.com at checkout. Make sure you put Shaman5 because you get 5% off that barrel. And I cannot thank Chris over at Badmo enough for taking a chance and sponsoring us. And I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all the listeners. And y'all have fun, be safe, and also stay tuned. The podcast is coming. It's a banger. I'm going to tell you right now, this podcast is going to be a banger. So until next time, keep your spirits up, guys. All right, welcome back, guys. So today we got something a little special for you, and I hope you guys enjoy it because I enjoy this particular person myself. Not physically, that's kind of weird, but today we have Kyle with Crowded Barrel, and he is their brewer / distiller. And we're going to get into a little bit about more what that means. But Kyle, if you want to tell everybody, if you want them to follow you or find you, where they can find you, and a little bit about yourself.
Well, you can pretty much find me at work at Crowded Barrel. I usually don't use social media for followers. I just use it to keep track of other distilleries and breweries. I just use it as I'm a lurker on social media, pretty much.
And that's totally fine. That's totally fine. There's the ones that post everything they do all day long, and then there's the others that are like, hey, I see what you're doing over there. So I totally understand it. So give us a little background on kind of what got you. Obviously, like I said, you're the brewer / distiller at Crowded Barrel. Kind of give us a little background on what got you into that, legalities aside and all that. What kind of got you into that whole realm, and then we can kind of delve into the thing that is the Crowded Barrel.
I'd say it probably all started when a friend of mine got a Mr. Beer homebrew kit for Christmas, and we did it together. It turned out awful. But then I had a little bit more interested about making beer. So I looked into it and I found stuff online, saw some cool stuff. And I found homebrew shops and I went and talked to those guys. And that started my almost 15 years now homebrew journey. And just making beer, usually a couple times a month one type a month on average for 15 years. From there,
No, no, I was
Yeah.
going to say, so having that experience, you really kind of geeked in about all the yeast and the, the fermentation and stuff like that. So that segues into the future, but continue your story. Sorry.
Yeah. So I was never really someone that cooked. I never really liked making meals, but when I got into home brewing, it's kind of similar, but I loved it so much more. And I discovered there's different equipment, different gadgets, different things you can DIY. So I got to geek out on just be able to build stuff or test stuff, experiment with stuff. Then I decided I kind of wanted to get more into whiskey. I kind of knew I liked whiskey. I think the first thing that kind of opened my brain up was Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. And that was like kind of the first, wow, this is kind of special. A couple of years later, I got bored and just typed in whiskey reviews, whiskey something on YouTube. And guess what I found? The Whiskey Tribe, the whiskey malts.
Yeah.
And I think I landed right around like the first episode of Whiskey Tribe when it was called Whiskey Biscuits.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That got me hooked on geeking out on just whiskey on its own.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, there was less to do on the weekends. And that homebrew beer I was making kind of sat in the kegerator longer because there was no one to drink it except for me. So I looked up distilling. I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of already halfway there. What would it take if I kind of played around with that? So I definitely didn't play around with that.
Right, right.
I didn't get any equipment. I didn't make, if I were to do something, I would make a bourbon. I was looking at, a lot of people will make moonshine. And I wasn't really interested in the moonshine. I wasn't really interested in just maximum ABV. Thought, what would it take to go quality over quantity? So I figured if I were going to do anything, gotta go bourbon. And then I discovered someone sells new charred oak 5-gallon barrels. Thought, oh, that would be a cool thing to use.
Hypothetically, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really cool. So it started out with a passion for beer. So you already had that background, and then it kind of morphed into, and I'm sure you were following Jesse and his journey once you started geeking out on that.
Oh yeah.
And then it goes, and then it takes you down a totally different gamut of here's all the brewing stuff, but then here's a whole nother world of things that to research and to ask questions on and get on the forums and stuff like that. And now there can be some chicanery on the forums and the Reddit and stuff like that, but if you find a good one, everybody said the HD forum was pretty good. I was really never one for the forum, so that's I don't know if you were, but
they tend to be vast and messy.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's difficult to kind of find the information that looks legit and other people are saying similar things.
Yeah.
Versus, and then, or even finding a follow-up. Like, oh, I did this thing because of this reason.
Yeah.
And then no follow-up. So it's like, okay, what happened? And they're very old posts, so I don't think there'll be a follow-up.
Yeah, exactly. And that's crazy.
But kind of like, hey, if you're already making beer, you're kind of 70% of the way to distilling.
Yeah.
Already.
And so where does that lead you kind of after that? You were kind of tinkering around a little bit, and then what happened?
Well, I was working in aerospace for about 10 years. And before that, I was a mechanic. So ethnically, I'm a mechanic.
Okay.
And that also tends to be the fields where all these new guys opening up breweries and distilleries come from. They're geeks. They're
Yeah.
scientists, they're researchers, they're mechanics, they're lab people, they're
Yeah.
engineers,
Mhm.
they're IT people.
Yeah.
So I guess I was one of them that kind of joined up when everyone else did. And that's kind of what I think that's part of what made the discovery and homebrewing so interesting, is because these same people were also geeking out and showing off their cool builds, their cool setups. But also because of COVID, I wasn't really doing much where I was. I discovered there was nothing I missed because everything was closed. I didn't miss anything out in California. And my parents have been trying to get me to move up here to Texas, over West Austin. So when I said, you know what, I think I want to move, I think I'm ready, to my stepbrothers, they were already ready. So they're like, okay, they went ahead of me. And then I wrapped up, my work, hung out for a little bit, and then came over probably a year and a half ago, I believe. And when I knew I was coming, I sent out just kind of resumes. I just threw cold emails to places like Crowded Barrel, Acapon Brewing, Suds Monkey Brewing, just kind of local breweries. Because I knew before I had to get a real job, I have a chance to at least try working in the industry that I've been geeking out on for so long and just see how I like it. So a couple weeks after I got here, I got well, I met Rex somewhere. We ended up at the same event,
Mhm.
and I talked to him there, and someone else that Rex and I know mutually, I had helped him out, so I got kind of a props from him to Rex, so that helped my name.
Yeah.
So I think Rex then gave my name to Daniel, and I got a call from Daniel.
Okay.
And went and did an interview, and a lot of that is just ending up where I am now. I think timing was one of the biggest things
Yeah.
because Peter, who was running the still at that time, he was going to a new, very, very high paying job.
Yes.
So he was going and they needed someone, and I just happened to show up at the right time.
Yeah.
And kind of meet the right people at the right time. And that got me in to the distillery, helping Peter out. And then from there, I said, okay, I know you kind of wanted someone to be a brewer so you could start making recipes from scratch.
Mhm.
So I started building up the tiny brewing system, like this little 50 to 20 gallon brewing system, so that could be distilled in our smaller still.
Right.
Got that up and running. And then from there, more stuff started showing up, more stuff started changing. The Crowded Barrel,
Yeah.
the new brewing equipment showed up. More people showed up, more projects showed up, more barrels, more finishing barrels, more stuff to bottle, and it just kind of it's grew from there a little over a year ago, and
Wow.
it's growing still. It's still
Absolutely.
getting bigger.
Yeah. I mean, and so for the listeners that don't know, Crowded Barrel is a very unique distillery in that it is 100% crowdsourced. I say 100%. Obviously, the crowd is not making the actual product, but everything that goes into making the product is from the Patreon of the Whiskey Tribe. So explain that a little bit to our listeners so they can kind of understand it, because you probably know a little bit more of it than I do. I mean, obviously I do click on what I like on there, but that's about all I do.
Yeah. So the Patreon started up while it was pretty much just Whiskey Tribe videos. And as soon as they started a Patreon, I joined it. And then they started talking about, or just doing, they do their wacky episodes on Whiskey Tribe every week. But then it just kind of came up like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we kind of did our own stuff, if we did our own bottling? And that kind of turned into, okay, what if we had a distillery? It's like, hey, there's this money from Patreon, what if we do something that they might want to do? They might want to see us do instead of just sitting on it and that money does nothing. Like, let's build something maybe. And they built the Fang and Feather, and it's kind of cool to see that go from trees and dirt to a slab to a building to a tiny distillery and tasting room.
Yeah.
And that money just kind of got them going. They're able to buy barrels and then put out the Eleanor series. And everyone just wanted more of that. There was enough people that said, yeah, give me that.
Yeah.
So those small batches were gone very quickly. Those were claimed up.
Yeah.
Then like that was a little bit more revenue. So that combined with Patreon, they said, okay, let's actually, we think we could do it for real. And that's my understanding. It's like, hey, let's do it for real. Let's build a full-size distillery. Everyone vote where should we buy our equipment from? Who should we buy it from? Once they picked Abe, okay, what setup is it going to be? So Patreon picked the setup. And then once that was bought, there was a fundraiser. That was the Royal Bastard bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, okay, this bottle is a little bit extra money, but this is going to pay to get all that expensive equipment actually connected and running. So that's been running, making things that are coming in the next maybe 2 years at minimum, because there's stuff in barrels and they're not ready yet. They're less than 2 years old.
Right.
And continuing to do recipes that were also designed by Patreon, like the single malt. We're still making single malt. Where the bomb recipe is the bourbon of Magnificent Bastard. Part of that was made on that still. It came from Balcones as low lines, and then all the spirit runs were done on the Abe. Those got put in the barrels. And then they did that Phoenix release, which was redistilled 15-year-old whiskey. I came in, I believe, at the tail end of that, where Peter was just finished up. So he was able to say he did the entire run of that Phoenix redistilled light whiskey. And then with him, I started making unpeated single malt, which is sitting in barrels, and then kind of moving on from there. We're hopefully, when we get the brewing system hooked up, we'll actually be making everything in-house instead of picking it up from Acapon. Because a lot of that's based on their schedule.
Yeah.
They can only brew so much for us because they have their own busy schedule.
Right, right. Yeah, they got beer. They got beer
on their system. Yeah. But when we get our brewing system hooked up, then we can kind of go as much as we want and get our stuff in barrels faster. The stuff that was designed by Patreons, even the new Whiskey Quest stuff, where we recently designed Patreon designed an Irish whiskey.
Oh yeah.
And they designed a new weird malty, very malty whiskey that is I'm currently brewing now, and I don't even have parts yet for it. I don't have spirit yet to taste, but soon I will this month, and then we can taste that. If we like it, if Patreon likes our tasting notes and they want to move forward with it, then that'll be another thing to make on our brewing equipment, and that can be in-house.
That is so crazy how, and I mean, those of you who don't know, the Crown and Barrel, it's a very small distillery area, and it started out just as the tasting room and the little distillery in the back. They were using like a 25 gallon still. It wasn't, it wasn't very
20 gallons still.
Yeah, it wasn't very big, and they were creating product, but like the thing was, the Patreon was, luckily for the Whiskey Tribe, the Patreon was large enough, and almost too large at some points, where like if you weren't the first one on the list, because they only released the releases to Patreon, so it would be sold in 60 seconds. I mean, you couldn't even hardly get the bottles fast enough. And so now that you guys are able to in the very, very near future, and you already are upscaling everything to where you're able to fill more barrels, you're able to get more barrels aging. It's just going to make it easier for you to get a product out, maybe not on the shelves, because that would require almost 24/7 work, but at least have enough in the tasting room where you can sell bottles to random people who walk in. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely not on the shelves, but more releases more often and stuff that actually makes it to public,
Right.
so that it could actually be mentioned on a Tribe episode, and then people in the public could go buy it a week after all the patrons get their chance to buy it.
Yeah. It is such a crazy community, really. I mean, I say crazy, not well, okay, it's freaking crazy, but but like it's such a crazy community because like the people are so into it to like to I can't even imagine. Like I know of people, I've been a Tribe member since the beginning as well, and like I know people that come from other countries and they bring suitcases that they fill, and I mean they're probably getting 20-30 bottles that they've ordered over the last year or whatever, and they're just picking up all their Patreon orders and stuff like that. It is so crazy the amount of people that are, I hate to say ride or die for Crowded Barrel. Like they are just like, we don't care what you're making. Like literally you could literally just throw some crap in a jar and we take it. I mean, that's kind of how they are. But like y'all,
we got Daniel to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, Daniel is a stickler about flavors and stuff like that. But also like y'all do a lot of crazy. I mean, obviously with having that group there, y'all do a lot of crazy experiments as well. Some call them meme spirits or whatever you want to call them. But like, is there anything on there? And I know that I'm probably shooting myself in the foot by saying this. Is there anything that y'all did a test batch of that is actually you're wanting to larger scale it? Like what did you do? The Oreos or the whatever y'all tried to distill. Is there any of those that are potentially going to be upscaled because they were actually pretty good?
They looked in the possibility that they submitted the recipe for Oreos to TTV, and apparently they had meetings about it because they said, what is this? We don't know how to treat this. But stuff like that could be a real mess.
Yes, yeah. Legality wise, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we weren't busy producing, Patreon recipes or trying to get product that we could distill from other sources, then yeah, we might do some of the weird stuff, the Oreo stuff, but a lot of that will it distill stuff tends to be not very cost prohibitive because you're buying a finished and sold product to then ferment and distill. So the cost to do those things would be extremely high. I mean, maybe it'd be cool if we could get, a couple totes worth of Capri Sun and ferment that. That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
But versus opening thousands and thousands of individual packs.
Yeah. Now y'all recently did the Assassin's Mead, which I recently, it was probably a year ago or more. Anyway, but it was.
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago? Good Lord.
Yeah, maybe more.
I got to try it in the distillery and I bought a bottle of it and still haven't opened it. Because, I just get things and I'm like, hey, this is cool. Like the Alliance series. Like I went through the Alliance series and, just kind of kept them and, like I don't actually drink through them. I don't know why, but yeah, like do all these cool things that what they're doing is they're for one, like you said, you're not the master distiller. You're still learning through the process on this, as well as everybody else in the Patreon. So like getting all of these different flavored things, which are weird and potentially dangerous, especially the sour cream and onion Pringles. That was just weird. Anyway, but
Oh yeah.
like, but it's also giving you good markers for like what this flavor carryover is, and like all of those things. And how do you feel like that has it helped your brewing and distilling career, if you want to call it a career? Has it helped that, or has it hindered it in a way to where you're like, I don't even know what the hell I'm tasting anymore?
Oh yeah, like you said, it definitely helps to see what kind of stuff carries over, what kind of things actually have oils and spices to it that do make it through that distillation product. A lot of stuff kind of ends up more just tasting like bad sugar wash.
Yeah.
But there are some things that have a huge impact, like the peppermint candies. That peppermint oil came all the way through.
Yeah.
So oily stuff, I guess I kind of want to call it essential oil stuff.
Yeah.
It carries over, and it makes something kind of really interesting.
Yeah. So since you have you're getting all the brewing equipment hooked up, what has there been talk of doing a beer as well?
Well, our brewing equipment doesn't include a boil kettle.
Oh,
which we would need to
absolutely.
pasteurize it and
Absolutely.
isomerize our hops and get the bitterness.
Yeah. Okay.
But if we did, that'd be much further in the future.
Right.
But it'd probably be maybe on something like a 20-gallon system.
Right.
Where, maybe we could produce a few kegs a quarter.
Yeah.
And that could be on tap at one of the other buildings that we have.
Right. Right. Because I know y'all are, and I'm guessing this is linked to Crowded Barrel. You're doing a pretty big expansion as well, and like where the Welcome Center was.
Yeah,
it's going to have
expansion.
Yeah. They're going to do like a big bar and everything. Oh, that's tied to the Crowded Barrel, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, they're going to have like a big bar and all that kind of stuff over there. So that's going to be really cool. So the expansion, and also you're clearing out a bunch of room for more connexes to put barrels in too. Is that correct?
Yeah, looking at putting in a rick house and get all those barrels into one location, and that'll make room where some of the barrels are, clear out those, and then have a lots of space for brewing and bottling.
Yeah.
Maybe step up our bottling game and get more out there faster. So maybe in that case something ends up on a shelf somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, because I've been on the back of the bottling line once or twice, and it's a slow roll. It's a very meticulous thing, putting the labels on, making sure they're straight, making sure everything's in order, then filling the, it's like, it's very meticulous, which that's part of the whole aesthetic of the business, is kind of handcrafting everything. Everything is touching, everything. But yeah, it's crazy. So what was I going to ask? I hate
finding somewhere to put things is a big hassle.
Yeah.
So that's why getting barrels in a different spot, getting equipment moved to a better spot, that means you're not running into things that you need to move, and you have to move them several times just so you could actually work and do bottling and do barrel dumps. Yeah,
it's pretty bad when you got to move all this crap out of the way just to set up this one thing to do that, and then move it all back. Yeah, I mean but it's also one of those things. Those are the kind of the growing pains of a business. You just kind of deal with it and move on. So I'll ask you this: what of the projects that you've done so far, which one was your favorite as of right now?
Favorite project? It was kind of fun to get faints from Balcones.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much their leftovers from Spirit Run. We got a wheated bourbon and their rye.
Wow.
And we got a few totes of their faints, and I was able to put that back in the still, squeeze a little bit more hearts out of it, and actually fill a few barrels with that stuff. And that rye made the distillery smell like red velvet cake.
Man, that's
It
pretty
was
awesome.
that's probably one of my favorite distillations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's and if those of y'all who don't know, Balcones is a major distillery here in Texas, and they're doing some really cool things, and they're everywhere. They're all over the world. I saw people saw them in Scotland and all kinds of places. So, but yeah, the fact that y'all can get their low wines, which to them is basically scraps, they're not really going to use them. They might you do a Queen's run later with them or something, but they're not really using them that much. So the fact that they gave them to y'all to where you could do something with them, that's pretty cool. And that's one of the cool things about especially the Texas whiskey scene, is everybody's really cool about helping each other out. Because you were talking about, the first single malt was a peated malt, and y'all were getting the malt from Andalusia, correct?
Yeah, we would drop off, half the malt for that brew day over in Andalusia. They'd smoke it, and then all that malt would get dropped off at Acapon. They would brew it. Then we got to take that 125 gallons over to Crowded Barrel and start distilling it. And we're still doing that.
But
but we're smoking it in-house now.
Yeah, I was fixing to say that. Now you have your own smoke shack, which is pretty cool. If you guys ever get to Crowded Barrel, you need to go look at the smoke shack. You'll know if it's smoking for sure, because it'll smoke up the whole place.
Yeah, that shed has permanent smell though.
Yeah.
If you just walk into that shed a month after we smoked, your clothes will smell like peat smoke.
Yeah. And so have you thought about smoking, because Andalusia does their striker, which is like a wood smoked. Have y'all ever thought about doing a different type of smoke profile on, like a specific run of single malt, do maybe a hardwood smoked or whatever, not cedar, but like something like that?
Yeah, we'll definitely do another run with wood smoke. As soon as still kind of dialing in the shed, because I want to get more shelving in there. So right now I could only fit 3 bags of grain, which would be half of the brew.
Yeah.
But I'd like to fit in a lot more bags so I can smoke more on one day and have a few batches worth.
Right.
And kind of get maybe even a different smoker just to make that smoking a lot more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also worried about Irish peat right now. So I've read that they're shutting down the bogs harvesting. So we ordered, I found a website that had a really good price on the Irish peat bricks. So I ordered a bunch of it, just so at least to make sure we have enough to get through a decent run of the Irish peat single malt.
Right. Because that's part of the whole reason to have Irish peat is the Irish peat. And I've heard of that too. And I know there's a lot of US grown peat as well. I don't know the profile on it as if it's as peated as even the Irish, which Irish peat is a fairly light peat compared to say a Scottish peat. Have you looked into any of that?
I talked to Moose about smoking. I went over to Andalusia, get some information about smoking process. And he's actually playing around with Dakota peat. And he says that peat is kind of more like, I believe, a Freud peat.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm like, hey, I would do that.
That looks nice.
Yeah, but it comes in a dirt powder form.
Okay.
So I got to figure out if I could have it made into maybe pellets or compressed bricks so that I could slow burn it.
Yeah.
But that would be cool to try.
Yeah, you don't just throw dirt on the fire and expect it to smoke. That's not really how it works.
Burn up real quick.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I remember Moose saying that about that peat, and he made some barrels with it. So I'm excited to see what the Revenant Oak in probably 3 years or 2 years is like. And that's the crazy thing. Like, you have to deal with what you have in front of you. Like, if you can't get the peat, oh crap, now what? Do you call it something else? I mean, it's the same thing, we're just using a different peat. I mean, it makes it really difficult to maintain consistency when you can't maintain consistency, because I don't know about grains and stuff like that, where you guys are getting your grains from, but I've heard of other people saying it's hard for them to get grains from the same source, so they're having to source it from different places. So is that something y'all are having an issue with as well?
Yeah. Well, I noticed different maltsters will have their own peated grains.
Yeah.
But they're definitely going to taste different from each other. So
yes.
there would have to be a lot of experimentation on which one do you like. And then, yes, can you get it consistently?
Yeah.
Right now, like we're just buying mostly the Maris Otter, the Thomas Fawcett Maris Otter. That's easy to get.
Yeah.
And that's something that Acapon uses, and they specialize in British style beer. They went and visited that maltster, so
oh wow,
I trust their choice for that Maris Otter.
Acapon is doing some really cool stuff. Their beers are pretty great. I'm not a huge beer person, I'm more of a lager type or a pilsner, but I mean I like a good IPA every once in a while, but the beer profile, when you use like all the specific, like the crystal malts and all that stuff, it does create a different profile in the finished spirit through distillation. Because I know there's some distilleries out there that are using like Crystal 60, which is a pretty, not super toasted, but a pretty toasted malt, and they're getting different, even throwing a little chocolate malt in there just to give it a little different flavor profile. So my question would be, is and this is not to stab myself, is Crowded Barrel in itself a marketing plan is fine, but in a distillery plan, is it the right way to do a distillery? Because
no.
I mean, because to me, I'm like, I mean, yes, I love all the crazy projects and like we need to get approval for this and get approval for this. So what does that do? That stops you from doing the thing that you need to do to push it forward. So like I have this grains, I need to do this, but I need your approval on that. So it just kind of puts a little hitch in the get along the whole way. It's great. It's a community building thing, but at the same time, it's like if you were trying to run an efficient distillery, it's not the best model at all.
Yeah, we got so many different labels going on. They all need approval. They all need artwork done. They all need to go to print and make sure they come back the right size or the right finish. That's a big hiccup, but that's kind of what we do like doing that over there. It's kind of fun to be able to bring in source all these different whiskeys and do that, and then just it's like on the side make stuff on our still, just kind of to serve Patreon, just kind of do cool stuff that maybe no one else is doing and stuff that the patrons specifically ask for.
So that kind of throws me into this. Talk to me about the primal spirit. And if the listeners don't know, I don't even know how to explain it. It's basically it's showing the difference between a pot still distillation and a column still distillation. Kind of explain that to our listeners.
Yeah, I've been running unpeated single malt, so it's just 100% Maris Otter. So that's just single malt, standard recipe, double pot still. That has been going into a couple barrels, and sometimes I'd have leftovers of that. It'd just be put aside somewhere. And then I'd also have all the faints I collected, so I could do Queen's runs of the same thing. I thought, hey, I don't think we've used this column yet. I'm going to use this column. I'll do it on a Queen's run, play with it, see what I could get out of it. And we'll get some really cool footage of it because that column has the cylinder is transparent. So you could see the level of all the distillate and going through all those bubble plates, which is super cool.
Yeah.
I think there's an episode somewhere where we could kind of see that. It looks rad. So I discovered I was able to squeeze a pretty good amount of hearts from it because it's coming out so clean, but I couldn't achieve 190 proof, which would be vodka.
Right.
The highest I got it out at 182.
Okay.
Which not too bad, but it did come out like a malt flavored vodka.
Okay.
And a lot cleaner than the pot stills. The pot still is funky. That's got a bunch of compounds in it that you want to go age in a barrel and oxidize and break down and turn into all kinds of fun stuff. The column still is like, hey, this is kind of cool on its own. We just don't know what to do with it yet. So that just kind of sat until we started thinking about A/B comparisons. And we're talking about A/B comparisons. It's hey, I've got both of these things. It's the same product. One of them's just been distilled multiple times and cleaned up.
Right.
One is the stuff that is ready to go in the barrel. Like, hey, if you guys want to do the A/B type of thing, we have that. It's like, yeah, let's do that. We proofed them both down to 100. Now we've got a cool little side by side. But it's not something that would sell on a shelf, really.
Right.
It's this do make just such a different animal from an aged spirit. It's for the whiskey nerds.
Yes.
It's solely for the whiskey nerds.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's crazy. That really is, because like I get a lot of people ask me all the time, what's the difference between, you always see the like Balcones pot still bourbon, and then you'll see other ones, that are on a hybrid column still, rectifying still, whatever. What is the difference? And the fact that you guys can break that down to bare bones and say, here's the white. Now, obviously a white spirit is going to be a little different than a whiskey, like you said, but like you'll be able to taste the flavor differences between those two. And that's super cool, because for the whiskey nerd and for the people who are interested in that, that's one of those things where they can go and say, this is the whole flavor profile of it. This is the flavor profile of it. And it's just a cool comparison for somebody to have in their, I hate to say whiskey arsenal, to be like, if somebody was to ask them, you could say, hey, I got those two. Let's sit there and sample it. Not that people, have the guy that's going to ask that at their house all the time, but just in case you got it. So yeah, that to me, that one was super cool, because it just showcased that, because you can make a column still whiskey and it's good. I mean, a lot of the bourbons are made like that, so, and it's good, but yeah, there's something about pot still making it sticky and funky and all that stuff. It's a totally different animal. So yeah, that project was super cool. I'm excited about that one.
yeah, you could kind of already find an aged version of a pot still and column still. So
Yeah.
but I don't think you can find a completely unaged. Well, aged for 1 second, because it has to be aged. So you kind of stick a toothpick in it, and now it's oak aged. Now it's whiskey.
Wow. That's kind of like that Phoenix that we were talking about earlier. How it got the delineation of still being called whiskey, even though it never saw. I mean, it saw a barrel, but then it was redistilled. Like,
yeah, they counted that barrel time as still good to go. It's still spent time in the barrel.
That is so crazy. That is so crazy. I'm going to
nothing was added to it.
Right. No,
So,
I guess you're right. It's just strange, like the TTB or whoever's doing the talk back on that. It's like they're sticklers on so much, and then there's something like that. They're like, I don't even know what the hell that is. Yeah, fine, whatever. Just leave me alone. It's pretty crazy. Like, is it a distilled spirit specialty? What is it? No, it's whiskey. It's still whiskey. It's fine. Yeah, it's crazy. So what is besides the Irish, what is the new project? Y'all are just working Single Mom and the Bomb, other than the Patreon stuff?
Yeah, the Bomb is pretty much done distilling for now. It's sitting in about, I want to say 15 barrels of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's sitting out there. The Irish recipe is locked in, but we just need to kind of a place to make it on a larger scale. Otherwise,
Gotcha.
it's going to take months and months to be able to fill a barrel of that.
Right.
When, hey, let's just lock in the recipe and then move on to a new recipe so we can lock in that recipe. And then we have this nice lineup where we could actually get that stuff in barrels a lot faster, bring it off larger system.
So
Maybe even we're looking at maybe doing more A/B comparisons. Like we already have the A/B of the Amberana aged and then the unfinished side by sides. That's really cool. We're even thinking about we don't have a whole lot of it, but it's enough to do a good bottling. Another A/B of new make.
Okay.
We have bought some bourbon that is 135 proof. It's ready to go in a barrel. So it's a large amount that comes from a production facility. It's lighter cuts, more of it. Well, we decided to put it back in the still and let's do our own cuts and put those in barrels. So we could do our crowded barrel flavor, our very narrow Texas cuts. And we had that up with leftovers of both. So we might do a side by side of here's a production distillery cut, here's crowded barrel cut. They're very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we also cut the volume down by a third, maybe. So, so that's also why it's a bad idea to try to run that style as a business, because
absolutely
it's a lot less product to put in barrels.
It is, and I mean, running pot still in itself is vastly inefficient, and that's why all the big boys, the big whiskey distilleries, are using a rectifying column still or whatever they call it, because they get a lot more efficiency out of it. They get more product with less work, less time, less energy. I totally get it, but yeah, doing those side by sides to me are really cool. I need to come pick up my Amberana one. I been meaning to do that. Amberana in itself is a strange bird. We've talked about Amberana on here a couple times, and everybody's on, for a while there, everybody was on this Amberana finished page, and it was everywhere. Everybody was doing it. But like, it really has that flavor to where you're like, okay, like you said, it was in there, 6 days?
Yeah, we dumped the barrel, put it in the new Amberana barrel. So it's brand new. 6 days, it was ready to dump. It was huge impact of flavor. Then we put in another barrel into that, so that'd be second use. That was about 11 days. So then we just put those two together as a 6 day and 11-day, so we'd have a bigger batch to bottle and actually be able to match the amount that we had for the unfinished version.
Right. And I have heard, and I don't know this, and I know the larger volume of barrels, you're going to get a little bit more out of it, but like, I've heard you can use Amberana 8-10 times and it'll still impart flavor. So it's going to be interesting to see. And you might already have the third batch in there or whatever. But
we're working on our third use.
Yeah, exactly. And to see how much you can eke out of the barrel, and then you could pull it apart, shave it down, rechar it, go from there and see if you can get. I mean, because I know that barrel was extremely expensive, so trying to use as much as you can out of it, because people, especially the people in the whiskey community that are following this, they're geeks about stuff like that. They want to know what the difference is between this. And have you guys thought about doing, like, and I know you don't do you do the Eleanor still as a base every once in a while when you can get barrels, correct?
Yeah, we get we're getting MGP still, and we started getting Bardstown.
Oh wow, okay. So, because the sloppy poncho was giant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. But you're not using the giant for anything other than sloppy poncho, or?
Yeah, right now it's just solely sloppy poncho.
Okay. So yeah, it'd be cool, like, to see kind of at that similar thing to get like a port wine finished or a sherry finished, and just to kind of, you could comparison until you're blue in the face. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that was the cool thing about the first releases of Eleanor before they went to batches, is they were like, this one is a stout barrel finish. This one is wine finished because the whiskey kind of sucked, and then we had to put it in the wine. But anyway, and this one is, all these different finishing barrels and all these unique barrels that are just totally, normally bourbon in each barrel, you have 10-12% difference in each barrel. But some of these barrels and I'm looking up there because there's the first three when it was the old dimple bottles. The first three of them are up there, and those to me, especially that Rex's barrel or whatever you want to call it, that one was magical. And I didn't save any samples because I was just being greedy and I drank it, of course. But I mean, it's really cool to see y'all love to play around with different finishes and different things. And talk to us a little bit about, if you can, if you're in this realm, about the Alliance series where y'all are doing, I would say, independent bottling. Is that correct?
Well, the Alliance, I don't know who started it, but there is a pretty sizable amount of just I think it's mostly Texas distilleries, I want to say. But yeah, just, hey, sell us a barrel, we'll bottle it, we're gonna slap your name on it right up front, and just kind of show off, like, hey, check out what we got. We got this cool distillery, a little bottling, did 375 ml bottles to try to have more of it so more people could get it and kind of discover other distillery stuff, just kind of as a single barrel release, single barrel platform. That's pretty fun. We do have another Real Spirits release coming up.
Oh wow, yeah, I love Real Spirits. They're doing some cool stuff too.
Yeah, it was actually part of the component of the Jacqueline blend.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of it left over. So I was like, hey, like, this is on its own, this is an amazing malt. So we need to get this out.
Yeah. I got the pleasure to do a private. We were doing a single barrel pick for a group, and I got to go in Real Ale or Real Spirits. They have a smaller barrel warehouse than y'all do, but I got to go in there and try. Man, they got some amazing, and it's unfortunate for them. And I need to get him on here and talk to him about what they're doing as well. But like, they are a brewery, so they can't do a high corn content or a high rye content or a high wheat content. They can only do an adjunct grain of like what, 20%, I think. So it's like, yeah, so it's like, it's really hard for them to come out with like a rye whiskey or a bourbon. They're having to like make a thing and then kind of like try and blend it together and say, this is kind of a bourbon, it's really not, but that's the thing, like having the right equipment. And of course, if you're piggybacking off of Real Ale, a huge brewery that's doing some cool stuff in itself, like if you're trying to piggyback off of that, I get what they're going. They're not trying to buy a whole new brewing setup and all that stuff. But hopefully one day they'll say, hey, this is actually doing something, and we're going to give that guy an actual brewing equipment so he can make some bourbon or some rye or something. But yeah, no, they're doing some cool stuff, and it's cool to showcase these other distilleries with your distillery, and that's one of the things that like Lost Lantern and the Scots Malt Whiskey Society, that's one thing that they love doing, is showcasing these other people, because like I said earlier, it's all about the whiskey community, and it's getting other people to be like, hey, you haven't heard of Talnua? Here, try some Talnua. You know what I mean? Like, that's super cool. One of my favorite Alliance releases was the Wyoming whiskey. Oh man, that one to me was just, it was absolutely fantastic. But unfortunately, it's long gone. It's been gone for a while, but I tried to save it. You try and save that last little bit because you're like, oh man, yeah, it's going to be gone. They made what, 300 bottles, and I was only able to get one because they sold out, like they always do. And I'm like, oh God, I wish I could have got a full-size bottle of this or something, but it is what it is. But all right, so one more question, and then I will wrap it up because I don't want to keep you all night. Where do you see, and this might be a loaded question, actually two questions. This might be a loaded question, but where do you see Crowded Barrel? Because I know where I see it. Where do you see Crowded Barrel in, say, a year, 2 years? Where do you see them going? Not in a derogatory way. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, like, in a good way.
In a year, I would see kind of the production side growing in a way that kind of makes it capable of getting the Patreon design stuff to as many patrons as possible, and getting just that whole production side rocking and rolling, and getting a really good amount of whiskey out to Patreon. And then I see with the alchemy opening up and the Fang Feather, I see that just becoming a bigger den of whiskey nerds. Just more whiskey nerds, more. Just bring them in, have them talking about stuff, talk about new ideas, new techniques, getting all different distillers over there, getting different store owners over there. I see that community growing.
Okay. So actually, two more questions. Anyway, it's fine. As soon as I said one more question, 5 more popped up in my head. It's fine. That's normally what happens on here. So I forgot to ask you this, and I try to ask all of my guests this: is there a specific whiskey? And I'm going whiskey because this is a whiskey podcast. But is there a specific whiskey, commercial or crafty or whatever, that is like kind of your go-to, that you? I wouldn't say a daily drinker, but it's one that, like, when you feel like you're getting low on, you want to go pick up another bottle. Is there a specific one?
Over this particular summer, I want something on a rock.
Absolutely.
Nice, that's been early times. It's
Hell
dirty.
Yes. Hell yes.
It's available, and it's great on a rock.
Yeah, so it is.
This summer, mostly that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
If I could get it, I'd get Iron Root more often.
Yeah, I know.
Saw it on the shelves more.
I've been yelling at them to get more distribution around our area, but it's hard. It's hard. It hits Dallas, and it's like, oh God. I'm like, it's literally, you're right there. Like, make more bottles. How hard is it? Evidently, it's pretty hard. But okay, second question. What was it? Oh, dang it. See, I started talking and I forgot what I was going to say. Do you enjoy the progression that it has made thus far, being where you're at in the distillery and in the distilled spirits world? Is this a path that you're like, this is my jam right here?
Yeah, I'm constantly learning a distillery, constantly finding new and easier ways to do things, especially when it comes to cleaning. I really love to find more efficient ways of cleaning.
Yeah.
I would like to get in on more, not really public tours of distilleries, but kind of like a private tour of, I kind of want to see their work and what equipment they're using. Like, that's what I'm interested in when I work in distilleries. I'm kind of eyeballing what kind of equipment they have, how they're storing all their teas, what chemicals they're using for cleaning.
Yeah.
That's more what I need to get into. I want to go, but usually when I end up going to places, it's a weekend and there's no distillers there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're just in the tasting room having a cocktail, and you're like, yeah, this didn't really. Or you get the 5-cent tour that's like, okay, here's our distillery. Look at this. Here's our barrel house. Okay, bye. Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. Like, to me, and coming from that, being a whiskey nerd like that,
I want to know the nuts and bolts, like day-to-day operation. And I've been fortunate enough to be on a couple of distillery floors when day-to-day operations are going on. It's not as pretty as you think it would be. It's a mess. There's hoses leaking everywhere. There's people are cussing and throwing stuff, and there's mash leaking all over the floor. I'm talking to you, Moose. I know.
It's always, I've always meant to clean that, but I just get sidetracked because there's all this other stuff that needs to be done.
Exactly. And so I was recently working at a local distillery here in town. They make gin and vodka and stuff, and it's fine. If you're into stuff like that, it's fine. I mean, I love a good gin, but it's not whiskey anyway. And I was talking to the owner / distiller, and he was like, man, the thing is, like, I start doing something, and then I'm like, oh, I got to clean this. Oh, I got to run the still. Oh, I said, so you need more help? He goes, no, but the thing is, like, I have to do all these things because I can't trust anybody to do it. So have they, this caveats to my question, have they decided to give you a still hand or anything like that? Or
yes.
Is Daniel coming in?
Andrew's there helping me out
Andrew,
a lot.
Andrew, yes.
Yeah, Andrew, he's a new hire. He's doing most of the labeling because we got this cool little labeling machine. He's doing bottling. Okay. He's helping me with the still. He's helping me with barrels. He's helping bartending. So he's all over the place. He's available to do everything. Yeah. But I know what the guy was talking about. Like, oh, I got to do this, but I got to do this. And no, you can't help me because if you ask me what needs to be done, I won't think of it.
Yeah. I can't tell you. It's in here.
Yeah, it's that ADHD brain. It's like, oh yeah, that and then that's the only time it comes up is when you're in the middle of something else.
Absolutely.
I could never tell you these things that need to be done because I only just thought of it.
Absolutely. So that's so funny. That's so funny because that's how I am at work too. I'm like, I got to do this, this, and this, and all of my customers, they're like, why don't you have a helper? Why don't you have somebody to help you? I'm like, because they can't get in here. There's no way they could get in there. I can tell them they're gonna understand what I'm saying because I'm saying it in a way that they don't even get it. So like, I totally get where you're coming from. But yeah, no, I'm super excited to see the future of Crowded Barrel, and obviously your future too, because I know you coming from a background of like, hey, let's see what happens. And it's funny, a lot of the people that I've talked to on this podcast, Moose and Alan, they all just kind of like, fuck it, let's see what happens, and they kind of fall into something, and it just kind of works out. And I feel like, and this is not to blow smoke up your ass because I don't want to do that, but like, I feel like you're a perfect fit for that because and I mean this with all due respect, you're the right kind of crazy for that area. You're just antisocial enough to where you're like, leave me alone, but you can still do some funky shit when they need it done. So that to me it's a pretty cool thing. Because if you had some hardcore guy, I've worked at Four Roses for 27 years, and I come over here and now what? I don't have a full list of what to do. No, I can't do that. Like, you got to just, and they're like, oh, I can't bottle. I can't do this. You basically have to do everything back there, which is really cool because it gives you a broad list of things. Like, you're never have a dull moment. You're just constantly doing something, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. Any last words before we get out?
Go learn how to homebrew. Go find someone that homebrews and ask if they could hang out. Check out the hobby. It's an awesome hobby.
Absolutely.
And there's tons of support for it. And there's definitely more YouTube content about homebrewing than there is about distilling.
Yes.
And
yes,
endless amount of information. And that kind of will definitely give you appreciation of beer and whiskey in that process. And you might like it. You might get to find a new hobby to nerd out with.
All right, so they can find you if they want. They can find you over at the Crowded Barrel. You're normally in the still house. You're not normally in the tasting room.
Right.
So if they wanted to, they could go find you over there, working hard in the still house, sweating your ass off.
Yeah.
I understand. I feel you, brother.
Yeah.
But
Trying to get everything done by 4 o'clock on Friday so I could go out and have a cigar on the deck.
there you go. There you go. There you go. And the cool thing about Cried Barrel is on Friday nights, they normally have, a bunch of the what they call the magnificent bastards, which are the, the people of the community. They come over there and everybody just kind of hangs out and has a whiskey, has a cigar, whatever, and just kind of hangs out. So that's really cool that you get to do that as well. And Rex and Daniel aren't horrible bosses either. I mean, that can be up in the air. But they seem like they're pretty cool people. I know Daniel a little more than Rex, but they both seem like they're pretty cool. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So I'm really excited for you guys' future and to see what's going on. And stick on real fast. I want to talk to you, but yeah, until next time, guys, keep your spirits up.